Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to this very special Women's Day webinar by India Employer Forum. I'm Mahrukh Shah, Consultant Editor at IEF, and your moderator for today's insightful discussion on India at 100 Vision, building a truly inclusive ecosystem. Being a woman, this topic is very close to my heart, and I'm sure it's going to be an exciting and insightful discussion today. Joining us are two esteemed corporate leaders, Kumkum Agarwal, Director Talent Acquisition at Vedanta Group, and Richa Mahendra, co-creator Abundance at Finesse, who will share their expertise on building a truly inclusive economic ecosystem. Before we begin, let me give you a little context to today's discussion first. As India approaches its centenary of independence in 2047, the vision of building a truly inclusive ecosystem becomes paramount. Despite notable economic progress, significant disparities persist in labor force participation and employment rates, particularly among women. Data from the Periodic Labor Force Survey for July 2023 to June 2024 indicates that the labor force participation rate for individuals aged 15 and above stands at 60%, with a notable gap: 78.8% for males and 41.7% for females. The participation of females for the labor force has increased over the years, but is still lower than the global average. The gap highlights persistent structural barriers such as unpaid care work, social norms, lack of formal job opportunities, and workplace safety concerns, among many other factors. India Employer Forum brings together key women leaders for an engaging discussion. This webinar will explore what India INC needs to do to accelerate women's participation in the workforce and build a truly inclusive economic ecosystem by India at 100. For the uninitiated, India Employer Forum is a non-profit community site that seeks to discuss, understand, and document different aspects of employment, employability, and the ease of doing business in India, as the next 25 years to India at 100 promise massive changes. Team Leads is the knowledge partner contributing to their expertise, insights, resources, and research findings while supporting IEF's events, webinars, and other initiatives. So let's get started. I would like to invite Kumkum Agarwal to please introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Maruk, and privileged to be here. I've already got an introduction, so just a quick recap. My name is Kumkum Agarwal. I am the Director Talent Acquisition for the Vedanta Group, and I have 2.5 decades of experience. And whatever I've learned in the last 25 years, I have learned it from organizations like Korn Ferry, Randstad, and Kelly Services. A lot that I owe to my mentors in those organizations. Just a little bit of background in terms of my skills. I think leadership hiring and stakeholder management and people management is something that I've learned over the years. And I would say recruitment has been bread and butter, and diversity, inclusion is something very, very close to my heart. So when Maruk said, let's do this, I said, this is close to my heart. So that's about me.
Richa?
I'm Richa Mahendra. I'm co-creator Abundance at Finesse, my entrepreneurial venture that I started in 2015. So we are into business consulting, recruitment. I started working in 1995, and I've been through various functions, from heading a business to HR to customer care. So, I have worked across the spectrum. Just to add to the context of today's, so my name is Richa Mahendra. Mahendra is not a surname. It is my father's first name. So I wanted to carry it forward because we are two daughters. And, to speak of changing times, after we got married, my husband was very supportive of this. And of course, I wanted to carry this forward. So probably this will set us and give us some context in today's discussion, that how times are changing, like you said.
Absolutely. Times are changing, and how. And while you said that, I had goose flesh. Okay. So let's start with the first question. I'll probably, we can start with Richa first on the first question, and then, Kumkum can come in after that. What are the most significant barriers, whether societal, economic, or structural, that continue to hinder gender parity, and what concrete actions can businesses, policymakers, and communities take to break these barriers?
Yeah, so if I break it into the three parts that you're talking of, when we talk about the structural parts, it's like the legal system. So there are job restrictions that exist with respect to the role and the industry in which women can work. That is one part of it. When you talk of economic, so, as per a study of Deloitte India, women earn 39.80 vis-a-vis 100 rupees that men earn. And I've worked with some evolved organizations, things are changing. But initially, around 8 or 10 years back, even for very evolved organizations, even when they were hiring for the same qualification from similar institutes, there was a pay parity. But of course, women kept talking about it, and that's how things changed. And when you talk about society, it is the stereotypes that we live with. Even now, when children are playing, there are certain roles a little girl child would play with her doll and something that a boy would play, because these are stereotypes that we continue to encourage. Again, 1 in every 4 women, if we talk about society, they are getting married before the age of 18. And that seriously hampers and impacts their ability to get educated, grow, and groom themselves. There are some very eminent business families where, and it's very inspiring where, so Goenka Group, if you look at that, Dipali Goenka got married very early, but now she is a force to reckon with because she made an effort to develop herself, study, and spearhead the business. But for average people to get married below the age of 18, it's very, very difficult to come forward. So these are some of the things, if you club them, in societal, economic, and structural aspects of it.
What about the pay parity then?
Yeah, so pay parity, like I said, there is at least a 16 to 20% difference globally. But in India, for every 100 rupees earned by men, women are earning 39.80, as per a latest survey of Deloitte.
Okay. Thank you, Richa. Kumkum, your thoughts?
Richard, this is extremely elaborate, and I mean there are so many thoughts that I echo. I'll keep it short since it's quite a bit of it is covered. I feel that while we've come a very long way, there's still a long way to go. And still there are social norms, system and workplace discrimination. I would say lack of representation. There are so many places wherein women are extremely less represented. I mean, while we've reached the stage of LGBTQ, but I'm sure gender is still something that we are still struggling. I mean, women participation is something that we are still struggling, and I feel that there is a lot more that can be done. I mean, we still need to promote work-life balance. We need to have more sponsors, for women leadership. We need to address unconscious biases. I mean, this is something which we all face in the corporate world. There are so many people who have no idea that that there's something like a bias that they have it in their mindset. It's an unconscious bias, and we need to go ahead, educate, we need to educate employees in the organizations. We need to tell them that that this is a bias. Most of the times, people don't even understand that this is a conscious or an unconscious bias. We need to raise more and more awareness. I think encourage male allyship by engaging men as advocates for gender equality too. I mean, it's not only women who will pull the women up. I mean, I know with 3 women in this forum, but I think we need to have more allyship, and we need to have more men who would advocate the gender equality.
Other thing that Kumkum, you've put it out so beautifully. The other thing is stricter implementation of the laws that exist. So all of us know that Equal Remuneration Act does exist, but implementation of it is very important. And to your point of mentorship, so Tata Group has really shown, they've taken a lot of lead in mentorship and leadership development programs for women, and their number has gone up to 20%. So absolutely.
Correct. I mean, if I talk about Vedanta, I mean, we've come a very long way. We have 28% women in the decision-making executive leadership. And while we speak, there's a conscious move to bring our diversity, hiring ratios to a 30%. So there are bold moves that come from the leadership. There are bold moves that are coming from the top, and we are all driven by the top. The kind of vision that we get from our promoters is extremely great.
So there is a so there was a company called Jobs for Her, and it then I think they changed it to Her Key. So there's a Her Key report which reveals a sharp drop in women C-suite roles from 37% in 2022 to 24% in 23. Does this data align with trends in your industry? What key barriers hinder women's rise to top executive positions, and how can organizations build a more equitable leadership pipeline? Kumkum?
So, I feel we need to, I mean, from a organization standpoint, I won't really have the data and the facts, particularly from a year-on-year perspective. It's been a recent move for me here. However, I'll comment on more from building a more equitable, leadership pipeline here. I feel that um, we all need to make an effort to identify and develop the talent early on. Organizations should identify that these are the potential leaders early on in their careers. They should have, they should be provided with development opportunities. And this could be leadership trainings, cross departmental exposure, challenging assignments. We need to also challenge the status quo, and maybe implement structured leadership programs, provide mentorship and sponsorship. I feel that there's a lot that women can do at the top if they're sponsored well. And needless to say, a work-life balance needs to be promoted a lot more. I think an inclusive culture. I mean, I can go on and on and on in terms of what all can we do. But I think to top it up, I think it's also about aligning leadership development with the business strategy, and ensuring that there's enough and more encouragement in terms of networking, uh, providing more mentorship, more sponsorship. We as women can do a lot more if we know that there's just a push saying that, okay, go ahead, you have my back. So I think those are the kind of sponsors that we need in the organization a little bit more.
Uh, well, while this point is absolutely correct, I think there's also, a strong sense of support that needs to come in not only at the organizational level, but also, at family levels. Culturally, India is still not ready to have educated women out there. There is the reason why there is a funnel like going from lot of employees at initial level of starting off with their career. A lot of women get good jobs, but after a certain level, it could be because of marriage or family responsibilities, pregnancy, ailing parents, in-laws, all of that falls on the women. And this is a very I think prevalent thing, at least in our culture, where you're almost like pulled back in your career. So which is why the transition to C-suite executive becomes very narrow. Richa, what do you say?
So one, I want to compliment Kumkum on very nicely covering about what all can be done. And Maruk, to add on to the statistics that you've given, there is a very interesting statistics that came out that attrition level for women in senior leadership positions was around 4% prior to the pandemic. And post the pandemic in 2020, it increased to almost 10%. After that, it improved a little bit to 8%. And what I'm linking it to is that during pandemic, because the family experienced the woman being at home and the woman herself experienced being at home, it could be one of the reasons. So there was a survey by that they didn't want to come back to active workplace, and which Kumkum has very nicely handled, that give them more flexibility, give them. So again, another thing, that there was a survey by Times of India which said that 60% of the difficulty that women talk about is about balancing their professional and personal life, which is why they do not want to go up to the senior levels. So there is this organization, I'm forgetting the name, and they work globally. What they've done is to encourage senior women to not only stay in senior positions, but to to relocate globally. They have tied up, so there are around 25, 30 global organizations that facilitate the spouse to get a job in the new country. Which is very interesting. These are some of the newer things. And to tell you, you asked us that whether, this is a similar feature in your industry. So yes, in consulting, higher the women are, the number drops there. And there are several reasons for that, and which have already been addressed by Kumkum, but just to kind of talk of three main points. So there are extended hours of work because of client requirement. And then there is frequent unplanned travel. And there is a lot of on-site involvement that is required. So, bringing all these things together, which is why we say that, you talk about unconscious bias. You also talk about now things like parental leave, where the men begin to understand that they have an equal responsibility at home. A lot of my friends are now sending their sons for cooking classes as early as when they enter their teens. So this, because the organizations are a microcosm of society, it's what you and I do as mothers is going to bring about the change that you talked about.
So true, Richa. I think you've put so many words into the thoughts that I had. And coming back to you, Maruk, on the fact that still there's a lot happening from an Indian cultural standpoint, that the woman has to take care of the house. I mean, whatever said and done, we've come a long way, but there are still families, and there are so many so many examples that we can cite day in day out, wherein whatever you're in your workplace, at your home, you're the one who has to take care of. You're the primary one who's responsible for ensuring that the housekeeping is done well, the cooking is your baby, the kids are your responsibility. I mean, I think that primary versus secondary is something that we are still debating. That is, we've not really reached a stage of equality there. We've come a long way. I keep telling that again and again. I mean, there are so many instances, but there's a really, really long way to go. I think the fact that the woman has to be responsible, and if there's a call from the school for the kid, in case of emergency, I think it's the mother who has to run from her workplace. It's still not the father who has to make that attempt. So it's also about that education early on, and and the generation on generation needs to be educated. And I think our kids also need to be educated in that manner, that it's not, cooking is not only for girls, or driving is not only for boys. I tell my 13-year-old daughter that you need to be independent in every way. It's not only about someone will drive you to a school, or someone will drive you to a college, or you should be driven. This is a skill that you should be knowing yourself. You should be driving yourself, and you need to be independent, not only financially, but also in every other way, mentally, physically, everywhere you have to become dependent. I, I mean, this independence. So this is something that we need to teach our children as well. I think the change will happen when all of us together are aligned to that thought.
The change will happen with time, but I keep saying this. Our generation of women have been trained to do everything else, and also we are empowered to educate ourselves, and also earn, and be an equal partner as far as income is concerned. But the men in our generation are still not prepared.
So,
True,
Maru,
true.
to add on to something that both of you said. So there was this very famous, video by Indra Nui, which all of you must have watched. And
Yes.
she talked about self-empowering herself. She also talked about creating a support system. And one of the examples that I was very impressed with was that, when her daughter would come home, she would make a call. So she had given an entire checklist to her support staff. So if my daughter asks this, this is what you're supposed to do. If she asks this, this is what you're supposed to do. So I want to bring on another aspect to this entire thing. It may not be very relevant to all strata of women, but at least people like us who are, educated and at a particular level. So I did this survey way back in 2010. And that was the time that a lot of conversation was happening about empowerment and about the fact that women were being discriminated against. So I found data on all aspects, and the other data we are already talking about. One very interesting data that I found, that in some of the more evolved organizations, when women were being hired, they were given an equal opportunity in the institute. But the growth with the male counterparts was different. So the thing that came out to me from that data was, maybe a part of it may be attributed to the glass ceiling or to the fact, but there could also be actual differences in performance. So how well we empower ourselves, prepare ourselves, and it reminds me of the Maslow's need hierarchy theory when I talk of this entire concept, that basic 2 or 3 levels, yes, you may need support because there has been a lot
Yes.
of situation in the past. But when you move up right to the top of the triangle, that's when the women will also have to really make an effort and exert.
I mean, to Richa's point rightly, I want to sum it up. It's also having our support system right, and also ensuring that, we also, as women, we don't always feel that someone will come and support us. We also need to take that initiative and let the world and let the world around us know that, you are the ones who we rely upon from a support standpoint. And you need to set it up as like your plan A, plan B, plan C, and then effectively appreciate that there is a support system, that if something like this happens and the woman is in a meeting, then there's a plan B which will be revoked immediately. So yeah, I mean, I agree to your point, Richa.
So we spoke a lot about work-life balance. Kumkum has been reiterating on that, and Richa also spoke about flexibility. So, and it brings me to my next question, which is, while companies that support work-life balance and flexibility see higher female participation, is this approach widely accepted across industries? And how can organization enhance these initiatives to drive better hiring, retention, and well-being for women?
So, like I said, this is absolutely the call of the day. And to add on to a few more things, you should, in terms of on-site childcare facilities, there has been a surge, so it's moved from somewhere around 8.5% in 2020 to 13.9% in 2023. But there are employers and there are employers. And now there is another very interesting thing that I hear in the workplace quite some years, and Kumkum will validate that, but that for quite some time now, men are saying, when the International Women's Day is celebrated, that why aren't you celebrating the International Men's Day? So once I was, before I started my consulting firm, I made this huge plan on how to increase inclusivity. And let me tell you, I'm totally there for, remote work, flexible scheduling, job sharing, predictable scheduling, all of these things that must be done. But the other lens that needs to be applied is, so I took this elaborate plan where I talked about a lot of things for women. When my CHRO was a Russian, and he turned to me and he said, but why only for women? So I said, because women are moms. So he said, men are dads too. So whilst all of this is happening, the inclusivity, because we are talking more and more about merit. Of course, like I said, some extra support to women because of the societal norms, but at the same time, some sort of parity and equality, so it doesn't become, that women, people get even more biased against women. And sometimes there is the law of unintended consequences. So if you remember, a few years ago, there was this thing where the maternity leave was increased from 3 months to 6 months.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of cheer and a lot of happiness across industry, and women particularly celebrated that a lot. What happened after that was, after a few years, there was a great dip in the number of women who were being hired from that age group. So some amount of fairness. I mean, we need not go to the other extreme as well, Though, one more thing that I want to tell you is, of course, participation, representation should be there, because even today, if I talk of India, there are less than 15% women in the Lok Sabha. So if the representation is less, how do they talk about women issues? But at the same time, I feel that fairness. So if injustice has been done, let it not swing too much to the other side. So I'm completely for all of these things that we talked about: remote working, flexible scheduling, parental leaves, on-site childcare, job sharing, predictable scheduling, but also with a sense of fairness and balance. More changes at a societal level.
Kumkum, your thoughts on this?
You know, going back to your initial point in terms of, industry wise and whether it works for our industry or across industries, I've been in the professional services and the IT space, and I've seen that very closely, and that has been a women heavy. These have been women heavy industries, particularly in HR, recruitment. These are the, there you'll really find a lot of women. I feel the flexibility definitely works. There are industries who are who are doing a fairer job in terms of that flexibility. However, there are still industries, where the need of the hour. I mean, if you look at hospitals, if you look at aviation, you can't really have work from homes. You can't really have the flexibility of women or men working from home, right? So I think it's also a balance. There are few industries who can do this, but there are few industries who can't really afford to to have those flexibilities as well. And then we as women, we need to make that that choice whether that would really work for for me as an individual, right? That's my first thought to it. The second bit is that to Richa's point, it can't be an extremity. There are still women, gynacs, who are working 24 hours a day, 48 hours a day. I'm sure they're also moms, they're also wives, they're also, sisters, and they also have to take care of their families. But they do it somehow. I'm sure there is support system or whatever. So it can't be heavily on a flexibility on one side. And then also there's a flip side to that flexibility. We also need that commitment. I mean, as a leader, let's say if I have a team of 15 women, then I also need, to ensure that all of these women are equally committed, right? And different strokes for different folks. One woman might need a better flexibility than the other in the same team, right? So I think also it has to be extremely need based. It can't be like like, since you're a woman, you need that flexibility. So so I think that is something that we should not encourage as women. And at the same time, a father or a brother or a boy or a son can also need that flexibility. He could be only son of the ailing parents. He could also need that flexibility. So I think we also need to look at it from an equality standpoint, not only from a woman standpoint, is what my thought is. I can have two male members in my team who need more flexibility than the women that I have in my team. So the point here is, I think it should be individual based, and also every industry can should have and can have their norms. There is a possibility that a certain industry just cannot afford a lot of flexibility, but the other can. If the other can, of course, you will see a lot of productivity, enhancement in that particular space that the women are. And I think that's where they also get that flexibility. Okay, now that my young child has gone to sleep, I can do a lot more on the work side, right? I mean, we've been through that journey. We all have that have gone through that those times wherein our families needed us more. But it's also about then flipping and understand that the flexibility is not a granted thing that you get. I mean, if you don't really need this today, then maybe it's time to kind of prioritize your work now, and then maybe family can take a back seat. Also, a very individual approach of ensuring that those flexibilities are taken whenever needed and to whosoever needed. It can be a man, it can be a woman. I think I would have an equality lens that I will wear in this particular case.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's time for my favorite question. Sorry, Richa, you want to complete something? Please say.
No, I was just saying that, and we are so aligned to this thought that let's not swing totally in the other balance, let's have that balance. And ultimately, why do organizations exist? It's a grim reality. They do exist to make money, though there are newer kinds of organizations that are there only for social good. But ultimately, those results. So,
Yes. Yes, I was saying that I want to talk about the debate on equal pay, and this is something that uh, has been discussed for centuries now. So there's this whole debate on equal pay that continues unabated as the persistent gender pay gap remains entrenched across industries. I'm sure Richa will have a lot of data on this too. How can businesses adopt concrete strategies to eliminate pay disparities, and what policy interventions can government implement to accelerate gender pay equity? Kumkum, do you want to take that first?
I would want Richa to take this up because I think she has a lot of data that she spoke about earlier in the call. I think I would leave her with these thoughts if Richa is comfortable.
sure. So I won't repeat the data that I've already told you as to how people are being underpaid, but here I would like to talk about two places. So, in the last few years, the gap has reduced marginally. We've not taken any leaps in terms of reducing the gap. Again, it would vary across strata, it would vary across organizations. But typically, I want to talk about Iceland and Norway. So, Iceland's, they have an equal pay certification, and it has substantially reduced pay gaps. Similarly, Norway has a transparency law that has again reduced the gender pay gap by 40% in a decade. So, it's about, bringing more transparency, having audits, regular audits, disclosure, and ultimately it should be about what you are bringing to the table. So, for the last 8 or 10 years now, when you apply for a job in US, they don't care what you're being paid right now. They tell you that this is the cost of the job. It could be a 20%, 30%, 40% increase. So for us to understand the cost of a job, and that's why, this new movement which is there, we had been talking about DEI a lot, but now they're saying that let's move away from DEI to merit. And that is what I support strongly. Let us understand the cost of a job and then have very fair ranking. So the cost of a job is, let's say, 100 rupees, and then have fair ranking and then accordingly pay this thing. And then how you implement it is pay transparency. That's why I gave you the example of these two places. You have regular salary audits. And again, companies like IBM are taking a lead in this when they define gender neutral roles. So that's what I think, merit, cost of the role, and then pay people fairly, depending on how they perform.
It's so true, Richa. And I would say that, whatever said and done, the WEF, the World Economic Forum still has data, and India is lagging behind, and we are behind in terms of, and the data speaks for itself, right? I mean, our women are extremely less paid as compared to the men in the country. But also about the data widely calculated, right? I mean, it's all sorts, all strata of the roles that we're talking about. I still feel that there could be a fewer roles wherein we would have a little bit of more gender parity. I mean, parity in terms of pay. But having said that, a long way to go for India as a country. And at the same time, I think, from a policy standpoint, equal remuneration acts, a lot of emphasize. I mean, we've already spoken about maternity benefits and the act there. A lot more has to go. There has to be a lot of study and lot more proactiveness in terms of the overall acts that we have, and the way we are looking at things. So yeah, I mean, completely agree to Richa's point. We need to look at it from an equity lens rather than a women versus men, and women actually really lying low in terms of the pay parity.
Okay, moving on to more um, a much talked about and trending thing today, which is AI and the world of technology. So the future of work is obviously digital and AI driven and tech focused, and we are seeing everyday innovations being made in that area. How can India, so I'm talking about society, companies, and policymakers, ensure women are equally represented in these high growth sectors and benefit from emerging economic opportunities?
Kumkum, you'd like to go first?
Yeah, so I think this is close to my heart. In fact, I was a part of a Talent Connect event yesterday, and I got the same question from an AI standpoint. I mean, of course, in the world of recruitment, though, but I would say artificial intelligence is no more a future. It's present. It's that near. We're talking AI while and we are implementing AI, particularly when I'm wearing the Vedanta hat, I mean, I see that implemented in day out, right? From our recruitments to our internal talent churn to everything that you think of, digital and artificial intelligence is the way of life. I'm not sure if AI needs to be plugged with the women part of it. I think this is again, I would say that AI is for everybody. It's not only impacting just the women or the men. And from a technology standpoint, I think women are coming on forefront from that perspective. I won't say that we are far behind and there is if there are any courses that in terms of technology or AI or digitalization that are very men heavy. It's the way of life, and it would be the way of life. It's about accepting it, whichever gender. I mean, it is gender agnostic for me, and I feel that I feel that there's a great representation when it comes to AI and technology and more and more women are coming in forefront, and they do advocate the fact that this is something that's important for us. This is something that is way of life, and we need to leverage it well. So I feel it's gender agnostic for me. My thought is a little bit different here.
So actually what has happened is that again in this area, the participation, and again, like we both have been emphasizing, because it's across strata, so there is no one figure that is very representative. But however, overall, if we look at the participation of women in the field of AI and tech and STEM, it is substantially lower than that of men. So some of the initiatives, like for example, Google started something like Internet Sathi. And this has helped almost 30 million rural women to gain digital skills. But adding on to her point, I would say that there is no harm in including men also. Again, another country that has been very inspiring is, so Germany led a STEM initiative. And that led to a 25% rise in women taking up tech careers. And closer home, if you look at TCS and you look at Infosys, they have set a goal that 40% of the new tech hires are going to be women. And on the entrepreneurial side, there are organizations like She Capital, because I come from the startup side. So they are investing in women startups that are in the tech startup. And one last point is, again, when we are doing these large scale ads, if we could change the stereotypes, we could show women leading in the STEM areas, in AI, and also men doing some other roles, it might support this even further. But yes, there has to be equality, and it can be done for both.
So you just spoke about women entrepreneurs, right? And startup culture. So while progress has been made, initiatives like the 2 crore loan scheme for the first time women and SC/ST entrepreneurs mark progress, but much remains to be done to drive inclusivity. What high impact steps should government, private enterprises, and industry bodies take to accelerate women's entrepreneurship in India?
Yeah, so, this is a very good scheme, like many schemes, many schemes that have been started. But just to tell you again, and, so India has almost 63 million micro, small, medium enterprises, and out of which only 20% are women owned. So in addition to everything that we have already talked about, I feel again more awareness, right? Then access to low interest loans it can be there for both genders, but creating a support system where women can access it, creating that awareness in their families, right? Again, tax incentives for some of the women-led businesses. If this is a priority that we have, like we have Made in India, there could be certain mandates, not much, but if quality is met, then procurement can be done from more women kind of this thing. Again, encourage women, what I've been talking about, STEM and AI in high growth sectors. And if you look at VC funding, only 2% goes to women-led funding. There are a lot of societal factors, but just some of these things, if this is definitely an initiative, nowhere should merit, quality, timeliness, anything be compromised, right? Again, giving them more market access, some government contracts, all these things would really support. Mentoring, training. So again, what we talked about in the corporate, the same holds true in the entrepreneurship, this thing also. Also, even now in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, uh, probably, I mean, and this might sound a little old fashioned to you, but because of safety, security, and mindset, maybe there could be some incubation hubs for women only. It might increase the participation of women going there. It sounds like a step back, but then if you look at the ground realities, even now, families and parents may not encourage women or girls to go. More of business conferences, networking opportunities where a lot of focus is given to women if, they are not able to attend regular conferences.
True that, Richa. And I think to your point of awareness, I think that's extremely important because there are so many schemes right now. Also, I mean, if I look at the Mudra Yojana scheme, which provides loans to women entrepreneurs to help them start and expand their business. It basically aims to improve the status of women by making them financially independent. There's a scheme called Women in the Entrepreneurship Platform, WEP. It was launched by Niti Aayog. It aims to create an ecosystem for, for existing or budding women entrepreneurs across India, basically to give them access to various support services, including your funding, like you mentioned, mentorship and market linkages. Then there's another one called Stand Up India scheme. It facilitates bank loans between 10 lakhs and a crore to and to at least one woman borrower per branch, or setting up their greenfield enterprise. Then there's this TREAD. I'm not sure if you've heard of this, trade related entrepreneurship assistant and development. This basically schemes it provides financial assistance to women through NGOs and self-employment ventures. While these schemes have been used, but I feel that there are a lot more, there's a lot more awareness and branding and advertisement that needs to be done, because there is so much that a government is doing. Of course, it's less. I wouldn't really say that there's a lot more, but I think it's also about uh, launching these schemes and at the same time advertising them well so that it reaches the right audience. I'm not sure if so many women are even aware of this, and if they even know that these are certain things that exist for us, and even if they know, I think the how is still is a question mark. How do we kind of leverage these schemes? So there's this Mahila E-Heart scheme, which is initiative under the Ministry of Women and Child Development. It's an online marketing a platform which supports women entrepreneurs, self-help groups, NGOs to showcase their products and services. I'm not sure how many women or men are aware of this. Even if people are made known, or it's marketed enough, it's advertised enough, I think there's a lot more that our women can do. There's a lot more that the government has to do. There is no doubt about it. But I also feel with whatever we are doing, there needs to be a lot more advocacy, and also the how needs to be clear on the ground of a woman from a village needs to know that there's a scheme like a woman entrepreneurship platform that exists, and it's not only if I Google it and I'll be able to get it. It is the scheme that people need to know on the ground. So I think while we've done some bit of work there, But I think we need to do a lot more of work in terms of also letting the people of India know that this is all that exists as the key to their locks, in terms of being able to ensure, to know that there's a lot more that you can do with your talent, and there's a lot more that you can do while sitting in your home environment, because there are still so many women or men, who can't really go in a proper office environment and can do those 9 to 5 work hours and show success. I think it's also about knowing and leveraging it enough.
So much information. It's very useful.
Richa, any closing thoughts on today's discussion?
Yeah. So one thing that, after having spoken of all those things, so Kumkumana, you are going to say that I keep churning numbers, but that's what I do. So I do that. But after having said all of that, 44% of Indian women have faced discrimination in the workplace. Added to that, the safety issues. And recently I was in a panel. So one of the IMs was doing a research on exactly this thing about how safe women feel discrimination at senior most levels. And Kumkum is there. And there was a huge percentage of women who were in CXO positions who said that they have experienced discrimination, even experienced harassment, but they will not talk about it because they know that if they want to get ahead, they will have to kind of work around it, not live with it, but work around it. So Maruk, so many schemes are listed down by Kumkum, so many initiatives, and we are seeing changes that are happening. I talked about Norway, Iceland, or many other companies. But I think fundamentally, maximum work needs to be done at the societal level. And all of us can do it. Each one of us, what we do at home, what we do with other people, how we are, and we need to self-empower ourselves also. We need to change our own lens of looking at things. Again, it will vary from strata of society to strata of society. Even now, if a girl child is being sold off, what can she really do? But still, there are stories of valor and of people standing apart. So a lot of work, and what you've done is really excellent. And if we can have more of such awareness things where societal changes need to come about, I would love to be a part of it, Maruk.
I think women's safety and this whole Me Too movement, I think we that opens an entire Pandora's box for us, and probably have another session on that altogether. Kumkum, any closing thoughts for today?
Say, we need to be the change. We have to be the anchors of the change, and I mean, right from the support system, the house helps that we have at home, to the boards that we represent, to the CXO panels that we represent. I think that change needs to be from there to this spectrum of the whole pyramid, and I think we also need to educate our next generation. We need to educate our peers, as mentioned, not only women but men. And there are so many men who literally are the allies, and they are the ones who want that change to be done, but with the balance. I think it's also about the balance. We need to be that change who's proud enough to say that we are the generation who saw that change from that to this, right? So my closing thought would be that all of us need to do this for change. It's not only women for women; it's also men for women. Similarly, women for men, and we need to bring equality. It just cannot be in words. It has to be in actions, and we need to live by example.
Absolutely. And I think this is probably one group discussion on Women's Day where we're talking about empowering men, and only a woman can do that. So, thank you so much, both of you, Kumkum and Richa. Thank you so much for your time. It We've come to an end of our webinar, and I will. I look forward to interacting more with the both of you in the future, and having you participate with India Employer Forum once again. Thank you so much.